Okay, yes?
What about the capitalization of this? There's an ethics question here. If I use it for my company to make money, and I lend a favor of someone else, what have I just done then? You have just you've made my connections into a resource for me. So I no longer think of my friends or family or whatever that I would use as friends or family, but as a piece of tool that I can use to gather something or refine it.
Yeah.
That seems kind of harsh in some way, and I would feel that I owed money to someone if I use them for a project, like for a school project where I make nothing from it, but I learn. It's okay. But if I use it for a business case and I use my network without paying, or it changes the ethical view of other people.
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
cognitive capitalism.
All right. Very nice. Yeah. I like that. Cognitive capitalism. Okay. That's my next point, is going to the stakeholders' commitments, is to bring those people in. Would they want to commit to this? They're bringing resources in, so of course they should be part of your project. It depends how much they're bringing the resources in. If it's Steen saying, I'm opening up the library, what's he getting out of it? Right? He's getting something back too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very important point. That who's using who, you could say. I would say that Steen needs us to show him some new possibilities at the library, but I also need him to see some new possibilities at the library. The way we find out about these new possibilities are doing them. So in a sense, both parties get something out of it, and it's real in the sense that actual kids, youngsters, grown-ups, old people are coming there and interacting with you. And it's not a joke, it's not pretend, it's for real. They're really there to get something out of you that day in December. So in that sense it's real, no matter if you say it's part of your education or it's part of the development of Stock 1. I would like that everything we did was a part of development of, for instance, Stock 1.
I think largely, I have no problem doing it for school. It's the way the world will become. If everybody has this view, then everybody is a resource. We started thinking of every person in here as their own small business from whom we can gather resources and use.
Isn't that a community of practice?
To some extent, but there's just the ethical, you start monetizing it.
If you start monetizing it, then, okay. But are you going to make money out of your business, or are you just going to make something better for some kids who are learning? Or
this time around is fine.
Yeah,
no problem with it. It's just in the larger perspective for life.
So there is also something called alternative capitalism. Have you heard of that movement? Okay. I'll just explain that and then I'll take your question. Alternative capitalism comes from if you think of like microbreweries, right? In the Philadelphia area, there's lots and lots of microbreweries, and when they started looking at researching the microbreweries, they found out that instead of competing with each other, what they were doing was sharing things. So, and I don't know the names of all those things, that they put the beer in and that they measure it, and they have microbreweries and macrobreweries and nanobreweries. So they've got different sizes of things for putting the beer in when it's fermenting. So sometimes they would share that equipment, because I've got a little portion of beer that I want to ferment and try out because I want to develop these flavors. And what they were doing was they were actually supporting each other and sharing equipment. Not only were they sharing equipment, they were sharing recipes. And not only were they sharing recipes, they were sharing knowledge about how things went when they tried them out with that temperature or that amount of hops or this amount of hops. So suddenly we have a community that is more interested in creating a whole diverse range of beers with a range of flavors. And of course we want to sell them. But it was more interesting to talk about developing this community around beer making than talking about how much money have you made. And that's what I mean about the sharing of resources and about this win-win situation. I learned something from you and you've shared something with me, and we both go off and we do different things, but somehow we're still in the same community. We're maybe not competing in the beer world, but in some ways we are competing. But you've got your way of doing it, I've got my way of doing this. Yeah. So I think this alternative economy, this alternative capitalism, and also if you look at social entrepreneurship, those are kinds of things that we need to talk about. So yeah, I think you're making some good points. All right, and I have a question up here.
It's not a question, it's just a comment.
Yeah.
I think the key word is that as long as your connections know that you are out to make business out of it, then it's okay. Like if you're open about it. So if you came up to me and said, Jean, will you help me do this or that? And you said, it's not for a school project, it's for my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I could figure out whether I wanted to do it or not.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And that's why the next point is stakeholder commitment. Because if you bring people in because they've got resources, then you will ask them if they want to commit to your project. So will you give me this resource all the time? And what can you get out of it? And if they're bringing that resource or that competence into your project, and you can see that their knowledge is actually changing the way you think about it, then you actually have to go around in a loop, because what you get is new means, and you have to go around and start again. Okay, so now I've got this person on board or these people on board. What does that mean for who we are? And that's, I guess, what you'll have been finding as you work together in your team, that being a new group of people in a new situation means that you have a new set of resources and a new set of means, what you can achieve. When you've decided as a team or as a group, these are the resources, this is the project, this is where we want to go, then you've got a new goal. Then you can go out and you can market it, prototype it, test it, and so on. So that's the way effectuation works. It sounds very simple, but it's a very iterative process, very, very frustrating process, because sometimes you don't know whether you're going forward or whether you're going backwards, and sometimes it's very hard to know when to move on. So the fact that you've been really well trained in causation, which is going to the end and getting the goal, is good, because there will be a time, especially when we're in teaching situations, there will be a time when we say, okay, the exam's coming up now, it has to finish, you have to finish your project, you have to have reached a goal, you have to have reached some state where you can say, this is what I've learned, this is what I know, and this is how I would proceed. Okay? So this is your challenge. You're going to try and combine robots and new technology, and this is a pedagogical challenge, but it's also, I think, a pedagogical possibility or opportunity for you all. So, how will you create new value for yourself and others? And can you use entrepreneurship as a method? And I think if you dare try using entrepreneurship as a method, and we challenge you to trying it, then you will have a whole different journey than if you decide right now, these are the robots I want to use, this is the challenge I want to solve, and yeah, I've got an idea for doing it. If you're already there with your answer, then I say your journey is not going to be very exciting. If you choose to go down the entrepreneurship and use effectuation, it will be frustrating. You will cry, you will be upset, you will be wanting to kill Klaus and probably me as well. But at the end of that, I think if you keep going through the effectuation process, you will actually have learned a lot more than if you just go through the causation process. And I think that the ideas that come out of this process are actually much more viable, because you're looking towards creating value for other people. And that's what education should be about, creating value for people. All right.
We had a group of students who said quite clearly last year. They said that, well, we already decided after 10 minutes, something like that, they said the very same day that this task went on. They said like, well, we're going to do it with these kids, in this situation, with these tools. Mm-hmm. And then you and I came along and said, well, we have to do it a little bit differently. And then we decided to do it. 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 And then we And they said, we changed it completely. It became something else with somebody or somebody else. And so they actually switched from causation to effectuation, but they ended up doing something together with somebody anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So, if I take you sort of out of this thought of entrepreneurship and effectuation and just think about some of the skills that are required for you and for maybe for some of the young people that you're working with, at least in 2020, the OECD or one of these reports says that the top 5 skills for 2020 will be complex problem solving, critical thinking, well, you're all here, creativity, ooh, where's that going to come from? People management, all right, and collaboration with others. Now, isn't that interesting? Those are definitely things that we're working with in this program, and some of those skills we're trying to develop, and looking at how those skills are developed. The one that may provide people with a little bit of question in there is the creativity one. How do I work towards being creative? And I've just seen an amazing lecture done by one of these neuro scientists who looks into the brain and looks at ways people think and work and solve through problems. And he says that creativity is something that is original and useful. That's his definition. It's quite a nice, simple definition. And he also says that the more time you spend gaining knowledge and resources about the problem that you're looking at, the better the creative period will be. And I know that idea generation and ideation processes are really, really exciting processes to go into, but they often come way too early in any kind of process. What he says is that we should spend 75% of our time just looking at the problem, identifying the problem, finding the context it's in, finding out who has this problem, do other people have it, how do they see this problem. So really identifying and qualifying the situation that this problem is found in. And then spend 20% of your time doing all the idea generation, and then 10% working towards a prototype or a way of testing it. So don't go into the ideation and looking at, this is a great idea, that's what we'll do. Don't do that too quickly. I think you've spent quite a lot of time already looking at who you are, what you can do, what your resources are. And now we want to spend a bit of time looking at robots and finding out what this technology can do, and who you can do it with, and who you want to do it with, and where you see problems with this. So that's the next stage of your process.